Okay, so this is my quarterly submission for week 6 for Wood Technology and Design 3. So, first of all, I suppose going back to where we are and all the rest of it. So, we've moved on now. So, I've gone through my analysis stage, my research stage, and I'm still currently moving through my investigation stage as we speak. And that will probably move on into next week. But it'll carry on throughout all of them. They're carrying on throughout my 12 weeks. But I suppose first of all, the process that's been made in my design journey is something I want to look at. So if my slide will change, yeah, okay. So here we can see just the iterative approach and how it is fitting out. So we can see that we're bouncing back and forward, left and right, moving from different stages. I'm moving into stages where it's probably further down the line. So my idea development, that's, I'm moving, so I suppose my realization for a final solution as well. I do have an idea of what I want to do in my head, which is probably only natural as well due to the fact of the nature of the module and the fact that we're moving on in labs, just trying to bounce back, forward and back, and just using that iterative approach while also trying not to get too bogged down. But at this stage, I suppose I am honing down on my final design ideas. I've processed a lot of timber in the labs with Richie. I've worked on creating a laminate board out of singular planks. I've also cut my laminates. I did that this week, so I've got laminates for wood bending now. The next thing I need to do, well, I'm going to talk about this later as well, is source some nylon cord at home and cramps and bring them down with me. I'm also moving on to the CNC next week. So, but anyway, we'll crack on now, and we will come down to this section. So the first part of this was the analysis. So what we were doing here, I suppose, was I was gathering all the information. So I was looking at the broader picture. So what is the broader picture within emergency accommodation? So I looked at the lens of mental health in there. As you can see there with the Venn diagram, I also looked at the idea of space. So what the issue with space was, cramped conditions, how that affects people in emergency accommodation, how it affects, I suppose, the knock-on as well it can have on not just the adults or the people who are placed in the emergency accommodation, but how that can affect their children, their families, I suppose, and so on. But this was just a broader look. So I was also looking at this stage, I suppose, at kind of broader aspects. So I suppose people in emergency accommodation have trouble with keeping their place warm. It might be drafty. They might have trouble keeping food on the table, bills. When it comes to energy consumption, I was looking at, again, it's a broad topic. So I looked at the likes of fossil fuels, greenhouse gases, renewable sources, global warming, climate change. And I also put in there preventing unnecessary energy use, because I suppose that is something that, regardless of who we are in life or where we are financially, it's something that we are all guilty of in some forms of way, where you might drive the car to the shop rather than walk, or you might leave the TV on rather than turning it off every time you leave. But there is ways in which we're all guilty, I suppose, of preventing using energy when we probably shouldn't. So here's moving on. Sorry, it's just a little bit off-centered. See, can I fix that? No, I can't. I think it's okay. You can see most of it anyway. So here I looked at making problem statements. So the environmental side of things, so the ways in which we as humans consume energy, that's what I wanted to look at, and ways in which we can reduce our consumption of energy. So if you look down here in the bottom left, you'll see there is what do we call it, a flow chart, I suppose, of ways. So can I zoom in? There we go. It's more like it. So I don't know if you can see there, but anyway, it's sort of a yes/no box ticking technique. So energy consumption, is the appliance needed? If the appliance is not needed, you can turn to the right there. So no, turn it off. If yes, is the appliance using 100% renewable energy? And that moves on then, so that goes right on down to just to ensure that when you're using an outlet or an energy source, that it's relevant, that you're not just using energy for the sake of it. because as I was saying earlier, that's something that we can be guilty of. Also, there I look towards the our social side of things. So our problem statement for the emergency accommodation. So what it was the lack of space. That's what I decided on here. So that's the lens I want to look at this through. But I do also want to keep that underlying theme of mental health, which I feel is a particular issue for people in emergency accommodation. I also spoke with a friend of mine. He works for He works for St. Vincent de Paul, and I just spoke to him about the sort of things that do affect people in emergency accommodation. He spoke about the likes of mental health issues, which is a major factor, and the suicide rates in people who are living in emergency accommodation. He also spoke about security, so I'll go on to that again later on as well. So there, I looked more in depth in some of the topics that I suppose I was analysing in originally. Just had a bit of a further look at it. So then moving into my research stage now. Perfect. So there we go. So originally the things I sort of looked at were the range of materials which I could use. So I suppose here I kind of fixated in sort of ways on stuff that was available to me. So from week 1 I've had pine floorboards from Convent. I've already spoke with them. They're 100 years old, and it's something which I really want to integrate in my project. As well as that, I looked at nylon cord as well, which I've spoke about previously. That's it's easily accessible to me, as well as I think it'll be an interesting material to work with. It'll just be something different, As well, then I was looking at plastics for the likes of the base and stuff. I was talking to a couple of peers, and I found it interesting. They were using milk cartons. They were going to melt them down and create blocks out of them. I just found it an interesting process. Now, I don't think it's one for me, but I just liked the idea of thinking about could I or would I use that in this project. So then I suppose looking up there, I looked at the sizing of the product, the safety considerations. So the fact that I'm looking at a lamp, safety considerations they're a big factor, So like I wouldn't want to have a lamp there that's going to be a fire hazard, be a disaster really. So that's kind of just the main safety consideration, to make sure that I suppose as well for people living in emergency accommodations, I have it written there that clutter in their area could be an issue. So if they're living in a cramped condition and then papers all over the place, or maybe a blanket ended up on top of the lamp, would that go on fire? So it'd probably be helpful to keep the lamp up out of the way and keep it well ventilated. So up in the top right hand corner there as well, I have it's a quote by Steve Jobs. So design is not just what it looks like, it's how it works. So it's not that for the design of the thing, it's not that the product is going to look beautiful. Now that is having an aesthetic element to it is important, but the main aspect is that it works. So with I'm going to use a ring design. It's going to have ventilators. So that's going back to the safety considerations. So I just wanted to bring that in there. In order to look at existing products, the easiest way I found to do this was just look up on Amazon what sort of lamps there are, and how they're dealing with the issue. Now, some of the lampshades and stuff I've seen, they resemble my idea. I don't think they quite match it. The one on the left there is probably the closest to matching my design. It's not the same though. It's a different tweak on it. I do find interesting. I've also looked at the reviews. That's got very high reviews, but an issue was the moving mechanism, which mine won't have. Mine will be a flat storage. It'll just fold flat. So then moving on to further breakdown of energy consumption and the emergency accommodation issue. So what I looked at here on the left hand side was how can we reduce our energy consumption. That's pretty straightforward there. So turning off appliances not in use. I was talking about drafty houses and all that earlier, sealing them up, making them more energy efficient. Using timers and thermostats to ensure they're on when they're needed and not on when they're not needed. Also, I was looking at LED bulbs, how they reduce energy usage, and also the use of smart apps on phones and how you can set light bulbs to respond to Alexas and Google Homes and stuff. Just stuff like that can help to. So rather than, a lot of people might leave a light on when they're not home, whereas if you have an app on your phone, you might be able to set that light bulb to come on intermittently for an hour at a specific time or whatever, whatever you need. Emergency accommodation. So I just looked in depth again. So I looked at bills. What can we do? Like, how can we help people with bills? So what I did look at there, I looked at towards the energy efficiency side of things and how by using energy efficient products that we can reduce electricity bills. Also, how planners and all that and having a good quality artifact can prevent a replacement of the item. So if you have a good quality lamp, you're not going to need to buy a new one. That's the kind of aspect I'm getting at there. About food storage is what I have there. So I suppose keeping different foods away from each other, keeping certain foods well stored, ensuring that the air's not getting into them, bacteria, all the rest of it. Space. So this is probably my main aspect, which I'm looking at. One of the most common difficulties shared by individuals in emergency accommodation. Due to lack of space, families are often crowded in small rooms. These cramped conditions create numerous issues, including but not limited to depression, stress, development issues, self-esteem issues, etc. So that looks at the whole element of space and how that is going to affect individuals in emergency accommodation. The final aspect there is the security aspect. So that's what I was talking about earlier about my about the person I interviewed. He specifically stated that he was talking to me about. He said that it's not just the physical security. So it's not just that they are often in conditions where there is numerous families in a small area, strangers, people who might not be what am I looking for here? They could be colourful characters. You understand where I'm coming from. It's not just that aspect. It's the emotional security. So it's the fact that they don't know if there's going to be a home over their head next week, if they're going to have a roof. They don't know if they'll be living in their car, they'll be living on the street. They don't know. They're insecure about it, so they just don't know. So from that, actually, an aspect here. So this is the mental health aspect. This is an aspect which is quite close to me. So I really want to look at this. SAD is what it's called, seasonal affective disorder. It's an issue it actually affects 2 people in my immediate family, and how the high-lux LED light is required to imitate natural sunlight during certain times of the year to reduce levels of depression. It's also, yes, I have there. It's also it's clinically proven that when the day is shortened coming towards the winter, that the levels of melatonin are reduced in the brain because the hypothalamus isn't working to the levels that it originally was. So that results in the SAD. Moving on then. So this is a work in progress. This is my jointing techniques. So this is my research stage still. So I'm still in this area. I'm still tying out different ideas. So a bow tie is something I spoke about. Early on in my monologues, probably week 1, week 2, I was talking about bow ties. It was something that I was really interested in using. Since then, I've figured that it's probably not going to be an aspect I'm going to include in this project, but I would like to use them in the future. So it is convenient for me to look through them and pick out their strengths. As well, domino joints. I might use a domino joint. I'm still not 100% convinced. I'm going to see what way the project plays out. Laminates I'll definitely be using for my curve. Laminate board I've already used. So in between the mortise tenon and the dominoes, that's why they're over and under each other. And the cramps, they're what I'm going to use to fix my nylon cord. So now I suppose in my investigation stage, it's still a work in progress as well. I'm going to looking at this information in more depth. So the user's needs and the artifact. I'm going to, so I want to look at some living symptoms of depression. So that's what the user needs. So the artifact must which helps in relieving symptoms of depression. It must be an artifact which helps in relieving symptoms of depression. It must be small and does not create clutter. So going into that hole, it doesn't want to be in the world of stuff. It's effective in carrying out its function as necessary. Still links back to the last point and helps reduce electricity bills. So that's linking to the energy efficiency side of things. Also there, I'm looking at my information. So the information which I've gotten to date and what's been important, what's been relevant. So online reviews of similar artifacts. So that goes back to my Amazon reviews. Interviews. So that interview with the fella that was he volunteers for St. Vincent de Paul, and journals that I've read. So especially the journals, I suppose, on depression, they'd be important. Materials, so the pine floorboards, I said I want to use them. Nylon cord and cramps, used to strain livestock, so they're sustainable. Colouring pencils, they're all sustainable. So where I got them from was I got them in a charity shop, and I also got a few off my niece who goes through colouring pencils to bait the band. The light fitting is going to come from a broken lamp, and the non-sustainable aspect is my LED bulb. So I'm looking through Amazon now to try to get one, a high lux one, but it's a perishable item, so I can't. You can, I suppose you could go salvage one, you could go find one somewhere, but it's difficult to find the light bulb. It's not broken. So the main issue, so that comes down to my joining techniques there first. So I'm using conventional methods as well as non-conventional methods. So I'm looking at cramps and epoxy there. They're unconventionals. They're supposed to, they're the wild and wacky, I suppose. They're going to be interesting to use. And there's also a looping technique which I'm going to use for the lamp, which will ensure that it doesn't get tangled. Finishing, that comes down to, I have this here with the health and safety. So they're both combined. The finish is, it's important that it's resistant to heat. So there's no point using the likes of a lot of waxes and stuff that melt and they'll go tacky and off colour. As well, talking about the health and safety, so you have the international safety standard, which ensures that these lights are up to date, so that their wattage is confined, and the wiring systems which are used. So I suppose what I've learned a lot of things, I suppose, especially about the energy efficiency side of things and how we're going to go looking through those sort of things. This is also something, I suppose, that's important to push on students when I go out to school next year, so that they begin to think sustainably. It's hugely important for the whole world, to be honest. It's not just important in schools. Every aspect of life, it's important to think sustainably and try to reduce our carbon footprint. Implications looking into the future. I think for the minute I'm on the right track. Well, I hope I am. I hope I'm on the right track. The next step, I suppose, is to crack on with the next tree. So what am I talking about there? I'm talking about moving into my final developed ideas. Now I'm fairly confident on that. The experimentation of my ideas, that could be interesting. So there'll be certain things, but I'm actually I'll be experimenting with the laminates now to see will they actually bend because the wood is that dry. So it's going to be it's not a severe curve, but it's a considerable curve, and it's going to be important to make sure that it's going to work, that it's not going to crack. As well, I suppose there's something in the bottom right corner there. It's something that I'm using is the checklists. So I can't see it showing properly there. It's not letting me. So so the checklist is it's effective in I'm doing little ticks there when I'm getting through things, and it's helping to guide my process. There's still work to do on it, but no, I think I'm getting there. Thanks very much.